either credited or blamed with one of the biggest election victories and biggest election surprises in history. Donald Trump, of course, is President of the United States, and deliberate making up of news stories to fool or entertain is nothing new. But the arrival of social media has meant real and fictional stories are now presented in such a similar way that it's sometimes very difficult to tell fact from fiction. This is The Moneymakers. I'm Bruce Whitfield. Tonight, I'm joined by the chairman of Brand Finance Africa, Thebe Ikalafeng, and brand expert Jeremy Sampson to look at the rise of fake news, its usage in the South African context with suspicious social media posts about, amongst others, the Finance Minister, Pravin Gordhan, and whether or not this is a threat not only to the journalism business model, but to the media as a whole. And of course, if the media is under threat, so are you. Jeremy Sampson, you grew up in the tradition of Fleet Street. Your first job was at the Observer newspaper, where people used to wrestle with language and decide on the best preposition to use to give the most impact to a sentence. And across the road with the guys from the Daily Mirror and the Sun, who were doing fake news long before social media came up with the idea of fake news. We've been surrounded by this stuff for a very long time.
And it's not going away. It's just that with social media now, we're more aware of it. But this has gone on for decades, if not centuries. But as you say, you choose a different word. Now, in the UK, you have whatever it is, 20 daily newspapers. If you look at the one story from 20 different newspapers, you'll think your Alice in Wonderland would have actually downplayed the whole thing. But here we only have a couple of newspapers, but then we have all the digital. And the thing with a Facebook or a Twitter, as we're finding at the moment, once it's posted, it's out. It's right out around the whole world. And this is where you don't know who it's coming from. Is it true or not? You mentioned Pravin Gordhan. You mentioned Farrell Heffergy, Johan Rupert. There's been all sorts of stuff just this weekend. And that's before you get to Trump.
No, completely. I mean, so the world of fake news is very real. And it comes down to the question is, how do you trust the information that you get, Thebe Ikalafeng? How do you trust? How do you differentiate? You're active on social media. You're a disseminator of information on social media. You consume information via social media?
Well, how interesting. You should ask how one decipher. Now, just this week, Cambridge University, one of the most respected universities in the world, has decided they are going to develop some psychological tools to immunize people from fake news, because they believe that this fake news are the same as a virus. They spread too quickly and they spread too far. But that's just from a psychological perspective. Now you look at Facebook, for example, in last year, December, if you remember, they also started working on tools to be able to decipher fake news from real news. But the truth of the matter is, the only way to decipher, or the only way to protect yourself against that, is you need to be an active champion of your own stories. You need to be an active champion of your own news. You need to curate your own stories, so that when people find this fake news, they have an alternate source to be able to compare information. The unfortunate thing is, many of the people who suffer from fake news is because they are not in charge of the real news.
Well, also they're lazy. So you get your news aggregated by Facebook, and you are friends with certain people. On Twitter, you follow certain people, and you almost emulate what you want to believe in your social media space. So you might get more right-wing or centrist news or left-wing news, and that will have a different slant on it. But let's try and figure out what fake news is. Fake news, to my mind, is something that's deliberately designed to deceive. It's a lie. There are perspectives, though, which are brought, if you, in your day, as a Guardian reader or a Telegraph reader or a reader of the Times, would have consumed the same information with a different slant on it. Now, if you're a Telegraph reader, you'll see the Guardian as fake news. It's not. It's just a different perspective.
Correct.
Define fake versus perspective, Jeremy, and I'll come to you in a moment, Thebe.
Well, we were talking off air about a certain well-known global ad agency whose tagline, and has been for decades, truth well told. And that's where I say to you, which version of the truth do you want?
Yeah.
You know, because there are different versions, as you're saying, different perspectives, different lenses that we can look through, and this is where it can be very tricky. Who do you trust today? Now, a brand is often referred to as being a trust mark. So who do you trust? The brands you trust, from the basic thing like your car, your toothpaste, whatever. And this is where we all have, I guess, our own portfolio of brands that we trust. And that includes then CNBC or whatever. Who do we go to? Who do we watch? And then within CNBC, we find Bruce Whitfield or someone like that. So we're looking around, and this is where we have layers that we can filter. At other times, you see someone come on and I'll switch off or I'll move to another channel because I don't like their ideas. When I'm seeing CNN at the moment with 2 anchors, 6 people on a panel, and all 8 of them trying to talk at the same time, I switch off. I'm not interested.
That's just dreadful television. There's a difference. Define fake news versus perspectives, Thebe Ikalafeng.
Well, I think fake or real, it's news. News is news. It's exactly as you put it, that it's my perspective. And whether my perspective, because all kind of news, by the way, is designed to create some kind of an impression or to influence some kind of a perspective. All news, whether you, from your perspective, call it as real, and from my perspective, or facts, and from my perspective, I'll call it it's real for my world. It's real for my world because I'm trying to create a certain impression. So fake news, if you will be just another version of the truth. Or what I heard last night on one international channel, it's an alternative view.
It's alternative truth. What's it? Alternative.
I think there's an alternative truth. They call alternative fact. That's what I heard last night. It's an interesting way of looking at it.
You've got a global debate over something like global warming, for example.
Correct.
And so global warming is either a fact or it's not a fact. And I am...
Depending on which scientists you use.
Exactly. I mean, what we do know is that for millennia, the climate has changed. There is climate change. We came from ice ages, the world is hotting up, maybe it'll get colder again in future. I don't know what causes it, I'm not a scientist. But it becomes, you're a liar if you believe in global warming, or you're a liar because you don't. And it's so divisive. And that's I suppose, one of the great risks right now, is how divisive a belief is or an opinion is.
Well, yes, no, yesterday the new press secretary of Donald Trump, Sean Spicer,
got quite a feisty kind of guy.
Very feisty, and went in there. And I thought, I want to see this. So I actually went onto YouTube and I watched it this morning, and I found him very interesting. Now, the Twitter I've been watching had given him a very bad press. And I have to say, watching him, I didn't think he did badly at all.
One particular thing was a reporter at the White House, so somebody with credibility and credence, and had tweeted that a bust of Martin Luther King had been removed from a plinth in the White House.
Exactly, and it had not. It had not.
But he did apologize immediately. As soon as
but it was out.
As soon as an alternative fact was presented.
And this is where it's so divisive, and given how brittle relations are, whether it's racial or gender or age, now Donald Trump has run a divisive, but things like that can be incendiary to actually push it to the next level.
But the question is whether or not the reporter was malicious in their intent. Did they make a mistake? Well, it's something they should have double-checked, and that was just sloppy journalism.
Sometimes they are strategic rather than malicious. Because, and I think that's how one is
But if you're strategic rather than malicious, it's the same thing.
It's just an alternative view.
If there is a plinth of Martin Luther King and it is still there, and you tweet that it's not, as somebody with credibility, you're lying.
If you were lazy enough to go verify that it is or isn't there, then it becomes a truth.
But in the 21st century,
for as long as the truth has been
in the 21st century, I don't have time to verify each and every single fact across my way, which comes down to your area of expertise, which is brands. And that is why, when it comes to sharing information, the brand, Thebe, is so absolutely pivotal. The brand of The Guardian, the brand of The Star, The Cape Times, Business Day, CNBC Africa, whatever it might be, that brand is pivotal and has to be protected and guarded at all costs.
Indeed, and these days, you mentioned it earlier, with in the era of social media, is if you're not careful, if you're not curating and you're not managing your brand, ensuring that you become the first port of call, with social media, the news spreads so quickly. Within a second, I've got 140 characters which can defame you and could destroy your entire candidacy in the instance of politicians. And that's what we're seeing in South Africa now, is we're in the election year, certainly to determine who's going to be the next leader of the party. And because of that, what you're now seeing is people are now using alternative facts to be able to create a different perspective of the various people, the people who are vying for a position. And depending on how they themselves have managed their brands and how they're managing their personal brands and how they are curating the information about themselves, that can become the truth.
What strikes me as so powerful in this world of alternative views is how you have the bots, and Bell Pottinger are accused of being the masterminds behind a very, very strong pro-Gupta campaign. And often all they're doing is creating doubt, which is the oldest trick in the book when it comes to disinformation.
Well, that's where we come back to what we're talking about. What is the truth? Where is the truth? How many versions of the truth are? Bell Pottinger, this is their job. They're spinning all the time. They're putting out videos. They're putting out visuals. They're putting spins on the whole thing. Some of it is an element of the truth, and that's where it can be so dangerous. Are they actually lying? Perhaps they are. No, with the
you can lie through omission. You can lie
Yes.
through inclusion.
Being economical with the truth.
Yeah.
All these things. No, but some of the photoshopping. Feral Heffergy.
But it's so clumsy and so bad. At least if you're going to spend money on trying to defame somebody or deface in this particular case, do it properly.
But with respect, Bruce, not everyone is as clever as you or as discerning as us, if I can put it that way. They think it's real.
Face value.
Because Facebook, you know, in the run-up to the elections in the States, had more readership of fake news than real news.
What strikes me about how susceptible people are to fake news is just the number of queries I get from people who are desperate, who say things like, binary trading, is it okay? And I'm delighted that they come to me to ask for an opinion, and I give them an opinion, and the opinion is run away screaming, because the binary trading charlatans are all over places like Facebook and are going straight into people's inboxes and are telling them that this is the road to riches. It's a dangerous, dangerous place, Thebe. How do we protect ourselves?
And it's going to be like that for a long time. It is as old as mankind. If you think about the Roman Empire, the battle between Mark Antony and Octavius Caesar in 33 BC, it was pretty much decided on fake news, on who puts what type of information to the public. Because remember, when a brand is formed broadly on perceptions and secondarily on delivering on the promise that you made, whatever that promise it is. So the key for us to defend ourselves is to be in charge of our own information, to be in charge of our brands, to be in charge of our own facts, and to ensure that whenever somebody searches for answers, you are there. But also you have to be alert. You know what I find interesting about some certain brands, for example, you put up something on Twitter, the brand is quickly to respond. And some other brands, they let it fester. And the longer you let it fester, the more truthful that comment becomes.
But that's the danger. And propagandists, Jeremy, have understood this for decades. I mean, when one goes to one of the master propagandists of the 20th century, Joseph Goebbels, if you tell them often enough, well, I don't remember the quote, but basically you can tell people anything. If you tell them often enough, you keep repeating yourself, people would eventually begin to believe your version of the truth.
I think Tim Bell was being interviewed once, and he was asked, "You've said it 18 times. What are you going to do next?" He said, "I'm going to say it 19 times, 20 times.
Is this the man? Is he the Bell of Bell Pottinger?
He has now left. But it's interesting that, yes, that company was based after Sir Tim Bell, the man who helped Margaret Thatcher. But he resigned from his own group 6 months ago, which is fascinating.
Why?
Good story. Because he started up on his own again, even though he's about 75 or so. I think he could see things coming down the line when you hear of their offices in Holborn in London upping the security. That tells you a few stories.
It does, most certainly. I'm going to watch Twitter to see what's happening. Brand expert Jeremy Sampson and Chairman of Brand Finance Africa, Thebe Ikalafeng, on the festering sore that is fake news. Only real news here on The Moneymakers. Keep watching CNBC Africa. Till next time, bye-bye.